We're here in a Falterback at HWA. For those of you that don't know, HWA stands for Hans Werner Aufrecht, and that A is the same A from the original AMG. So that tells you all you need to know about this place. This is an engineering house. They build some of the greatest race cars, including many Mercedes and AMG models over the years. And this is a little taster of what this place has done. C-Class touring car, 190E touring cars, of course the 190 Evo II, which you might be familiar with their new project, the Evo, which we'll see later in this video, all the way down to the AMG Hammer, the legendary AMG Hammer. This is just a little teaser. Of course, these cars are all real full-size cars that you might be quite familiar with, but in this video, I'm going to give you a special look into the cars that never got made. That's right, we're going to get an exclusive look behind the scenes at some of the stillborn projects here at HWA. So this is where it gets really exciting. Probably you can recognize some of these models, but others you'll be thinking, what on earth is that? I've never seen it before. So here we have a lot of design studies from HWA over the years. These are models that they would have come up with to propose to Mercedes-Benz or AMG, say, let's make this. This is how this kind of car could look. So let's start at the end. This is a pair of SLs. The one in the middle, you'll probably be pretty familiar with. This is the SL65 Black Series. Facelift R230 generation, the Black Series that had the V12, sledgehammer if you will. In fact, it's even on my t-shirt. That's how much I love that car. However, the car next to it looks almost identical, but a little bit different. And you might be thinking, what on earth is this? This is a pre-facelift R230, like the SL55, but it's got enormous wide arches and flares and vents, everything the Black Series had. But of course, there was never a pre-facelift SL Black Series. However, back in the early 2000s, it was actually HWA that made the proposal of a hardcore, non-convertible SL, like a Black Series, to AMG. And it was in that time that we were still in the pre-facelift generation with the kind of double bubble headlights. And this is what they showed them. At the time, they weren't really interested. However, AMG finally revisited the idea, and by the time they were interested, it was on their facelift AMG. And what was born was the SL65 Black Series that you more or less see here, with a few little differences. Coming around the back, a few details I want to show you on both of these cars. First of all, take a look at this. Just a nice detail. This wing goes up and down. Apparently, a thing they like to do with a lot of their models was half and half. So you could flip the car around and show how one side might look versus the other. So different wheels from one side to the other. Unfortunately, it looks like the rims have gone missing over the years from this one. But if you see here, it's actually got the CLK DTM style rims. So that tells you what kind of era we're working with here. Of course, these are the later, and they do actually just pop out, the later SL65 Black Series wheels that ended up going on it. You can also see it's been neatly taped over, but there was a bracket here previously to have an extended rear wing. So it shows you a little bit of the thought process that might have gone on with what the SL Black Series could have become. So it's a fascinating insight to the evolution of this was the proposal and then this was the finished product. And then next to it, this is the wackiest thing on the table, I think. Looking at the tailpipes, I think this is from around about the CLK DTM era, which of course HWA did build all the CLK DTMs. And this is a design study as to what could a future performance Mercedes AMG look like. Super wide arches, intakes everywhere. It's hard to tell whether this car is even front-engined or mid-engined. It looks like an absolute rocket ship. It's got the CLK GTR wheels. Fantastic. And then this is where things get really interesting, right? Obviously, this is a CLK GTR. You know all about that. This is the race car from Le Mans. And this is an SLK, or at least it looks like an SLK. But what I'm told is, at the time, HWA took this to AMG and said, this is what a future performance AMG road car could look like, taking technology from the CLK GTR, but sort of in the packaging of an SLK. Obviously, no folding hardtop roof. It's got a roof scoop. So this is a CLK GTR underneath that looks like an SLK. Arguably could have been this sort of genesis for the SLK Black Series, obviously quite a bit different. This might have even had a V12 in it. SLK Black Series was a V8, but this is completely nuts. I've never seen anything like it, SLK with a roof scoop. Then next to it, CLK GTR Le Mans car, and then finally this lovely little 190E Evo II DTM car, and they've actually got the exact sister car for this downstairs. This is number 8. They've got number 7 in full size. In fact, I can actually see it out the window down there right now, and you saw it at the start of the video. This is a kind of special place that HWA is. And it doesn't even stop there. We've got more secret models to show you yet. And one little anecdote to add in about the SL Black Series, obviously developed and built here at HWA. When they had the first prototype, this thing was completely unhinged. It was supposed to be a race car for the road, no ABS, no traction control. And if you know anything about these cars, you can imagine maybe that was a little bit of a bad idea, to the extent that it had intakes for the turbos built into the headlights, and this thing was producing over 800 horsepower, and AMG said absolutely not, no way. So it had to be reined in a fair bit before it became the production car that we know and love today. So I've spotted this one hiding up here. We're actually in the carbon shop at HWA, and this is completely fascinating. It's mid-engined, as you can probably tell from the shape of it, and this was supposed to be a successor to the CLK GTR. So this is the CLK GTR replacement that never ever happened, I suppose, until more modern times when they finally came out with the AMG 1. So this is a really special to be able to see this here.
This is a bit of a hidden treasure in this cabinet. This is a CLK DTM, but not as you know it. This is actually based on the C208 as opposed to the final C209 CLK DTM. And it was an early interpretation of what a hardcore motorsport-derived AMG CLK road car would look like.
So this is the largest and most functional of the models we've seen. This is a half-scale wind tunnel model, full carbon fibre body, because it's got to be exactly accurate to what this car would have been in order to measure the airflow of the body and so on. And what it would have been is a C63 W204 IMSA car, so to race in America. Sadly never happened, but you can see the super wide arches, a little bit different to the C63 we know and love, but to the extent that it's even got ducting for the brakes and all these little sensors in it to measure the airflow everywhere. And a fin would come out of here and here to hold the thing up in the air in the wind tunnel, and they could raise it up and down and measure all of the measurements on the car, see how the airflow travels over it.
This is the top side from that diffuser, from that C63 model, which allows you to see just how many sensors they'd use on a wind tunnel model like this.
So these cars were actually made, and some of them were very successful, hence why they proudly got them in the cabinets. So I thought it was worth showing you those two. Obviously C-Class DTM cars, 190E DTM cars, all the way down to the AMG team buses. These things are amazing. To have an AMG van with monoblock wheels on it, I'd absolutely love that. A few helmets, more DTM cars. You can see the kind of rich history this place has, all the way down to the likes of the CLK DTM car. And here we have the proper stuff. CLK GTR.
This is the CLK GTR GT1, and then the Strassen version underneath, which is obviously the road car of the GT1. That at the bottom is the CLK LM Strassen version, of which only one was ever made, and then above it is the CLK GTR Roadster, which is also very rare.
Ultra rare cars in real life, but probably these models are even rarer than the real thing. They've got trophies and model cars for days in this place, but I thought an appropriate place to finish up on the model cars was with this, the Red Pig, obviously the original AMG, the SEL that they took to Spa. Everyone said they were crazy to race in S-Class, but they did extremely well. Of course, the rest is history. Let's go take a look at some more full-size cars, because I know you're all itching to see those too. So, enough talking about HWA's past. It's time to talk about the present and get our hands on some full-size cars. So this is, you've seen this before on my channel, this is the HWA Evo. It's a homage to the 190E Evo II. This is the show car that got unveiled last year. However, big exciting developments here at HWA. They've got a proper, fully engineered, obviously still in development, prototype here. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference, obviously not fully tinted out like this one because that didn't have a proper interior. Different brakes. Full exposed carbon fibre body, because this is very much a prototype. You can actually spec this car in exposed carbon. I'll show you some of the spec options at the back later on, but this is just rough and ready to be developed and tested. So I'll show you around this car and some of the cool little details on it. For instance, if I take a look in the back, you can even see the gearbox uncovered, all of the workings in there, part of what helps give this car a much better weight distribution. Obviously the finished car will have seats in here. This roll cage won't be like this. It'll all be seamlessly integrated within the A-pillar, etc. In fact, noticing this roll structure here, this is the only bit left on the outside from the original 190E shell. There's one of them over there, we'll overlay an image. Everything else is newly manufactured carbon fibre pieces to make this car, first of all, give it that mean look, wider, lower than the original, and of course, save a lot of weight. So taking a look under the bonnet now, obviously it's that V6 twin turbo engine that's been completely reworked by HWA. They're now saying it's producing up to 530 horsepower. So this thing is going to be a rocket ship. But perhaps more impressive to show you under the bonnet isn't the engine, it's actually this whole front structure. This isn't just a carbon fiber covering, it's an entirely new front end. In fact, the old 190E body shell, what's left of it, ends around about here, and this whole front end is new, with modern standards for the crash test requirements, and also they've moved the engine much further back. In the original 190E, the engine sits on top of the front axle, but that V6 is much further back, giving this car way better weight distribution. Speaking of weight distribution, let's go take a look at some of the parts that make up this car. So I'm going to have to try my best not to make a huge mess here, but this is the entire rear end of the Evo, and I can pick it up completely by myself because, of course, it's carbon fiber. This isn't just for show. This whole car has been completely re-engineered in lightweight modern materials like carbon fiber. You can see we've got the boot lid here, the rear bumper, the front bumper, all of the crash structures as well. They're not carbon fiber, obviously. So it's really fascinating to see what's going into making these cars. To reiterate, this is the HWA Evo Prototype 1. So this car, they're developing things like the ABS, even the ECU, with this first fully working car. Of course, the interior is not all correct because it is very much a development car. However, if you want to see a much more correct interior, however still not fully complete, we have this here. This is the interior test bed, which means I can actually climb inside an HWA Evo. So I'm told there's still quite a few changes to come yet. For instance, the steering wheel will be different, and this is very much an early prototype, so don't pay too much attention to the finishing, like these little stickers here. This is just to show an idea of how it might look, but it's really nice in here. We've got 4 bucket seats, that's right, 2 bucket seats in the back. We've got Apple CarPlay, you know I love that, and this complete digital dash, which means they can program anything they want there. At the moment, they've gone for the retro, old school 80s, 90s, 190E style dashboard, but of course it's digital. Start stop button straight off an AMG, you probably recognize that. And everything, although it looks like classic Mercedes in here, has been engineered from the ground up, other than I'm told these door handle pulls are the only remaining part from an original 190E in here. Obviously the original 190E and then the Evo II based on it was a family 4-door sedan, so there were many compromises, seating position wasn't quite right, etc. That's just the start of it. With this, they've gone from the ground up again and they've re-engineered the car, so the seating position is much lower, much more sporty position. Everything's developed exactly where the gear shift is, how the steering wheel sits in your hands. Everything's perfect now to make this a proper track car. You've obviously seen the exposed carbon finish on the prototype. That is really just because it's a test car, rough and ready, no point to paint it. However, HWA do offer exposed satin carbon fiber, exposed gloss carbon fiber, which of course will all be executed brilliantly. Don't forget that HWA make cars like the Apollo IE, the D Tomaso P72, so they know how to do carbon fiber. But other colour options they've got, just look at this metallic brown. That is beautiful. And then this green. And if you had any wonder how beautiful they were, they've got exactly the same again in a bigger version. I think I might have it in this colour. Absolutely lovely. So after today, they're actually going to send this car out on the road, and I imagine to the track as well, to start testing it and of course engineering it. So keep an eye out for the HWA Evo going quickly somewhere near you. Exceptionally cool thing. Thank you to HWA for having me down to check out the latest development with this, the Evo.